Welcome to the Short Rod Show. This is our ice fishing podcast. You got Ben here.
And you got Brett.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We're on episode 3 now.
Yeah.
Time is flying by.
I know, it's been fun.
We're having all kinds of fun. Hope you guys are too, listening in at home and in the car, joining with us, and we love to talk ice fishing.
Yep.
That's what we're here for. So, Brett, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, I'm sure you saw on the headline. Today we're going to be talking about ice fishing. No flasher, no problem. How to get by. You know, a lot of you guys starting out, the flasher is kind of a high investment. I mean, I don't think you can get a new one for less than $200. Probably more like $250.
You can't get a used one less than $200.
Yeah, you can't really get a used one. But yeah. So how do you go about it without fishing without a flasher? I've done it for a lot of years. I've only just recently, within the last 2 to 3 years, had a flasher of my own, and that's just a Humminbird 698 that I got off my fishing boat. That happened to have a flasher mode on it when we bought it, and I was like, well, heck yeah, I'll buy the transducer and use it. But yeah, I know there's a lot of guys out there that don't run flashers, or if you're just getting into ice fishing. How do I do it? You can
also, too, have you ever left your flasher at home?
No, I haven't. Have you?
I've forgotten mine once or twice, so we'll cover that, too, today on today's episode of the Short Rod Show. So that's all coming up next. Hey there, guys. If you've been over to our website at shortrodshow.com and like what you see, you should get in touch with our partners over at Evergrow Marketing. They're a digital marketing agency that specializes in landscape and lawn care businesses, but they also work with guys like us. They can help your business show up on Google and help expand your digital footprint. To learn more about the Evergrow team and how they can help you get more customers, visit them at evergrowmarketing.com. Tell them Ben and Brett sent you from the Short Rod Show podcast to get an additional 10% off your first bill.
Ben and I really want to thank our fans for helping the Short Rod Show really take off. You can find us all over the internet at shortrodshow.com. Please sign up for our email list so you can stay up to date with every podcast. Also, you can find us on Facebook, Short Rod Show, and anytime you get a chance, hit that star number 5.
All right, welcome back to the Short Rod Show. Today we're talking no flasher, no problem here. Brett is the resident no flasher expert. I guess I've been fishing with the flasher now and haven't fished without one for, 6 or 8 years. So it's been a little while.
Yeah, you definitely lose the touch after a while.
Definitely. So we're talking old school tactics today.
Yep. So the first thing that you got to get into, obviously, is finding a spot. So I'm armed. I've got my hand auger. I've got my, whatever $15 rod I bought at Fleet Farm. It's got a couple of jigs.
Schoolie jig. Rod.
Schoolie's ready to roll.
Schoolie jig on a schoolie rod.
Yeah.
If you're ultra low budget and you only have $12 to spend,
the schoolie is the way to go because it comes with the jigs.
Fish it as is.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And line.
Yep. So how do you find a spot? How do you break down a body of water without having flashers to help?
Yep. So if I'm going out on a body of water that I've never been to, I don't know anything about this, is I'm going and I'm looking for, first and foremost, I'm looking for old holes. I'm not looking to go walk up into the group that's already fishing out there. I'm not looking to go into the village, that they call out there.
The community holes?
I don't put on my, Iowa fish finders. You remember that guy saying that?
Yes.
With his binoculars, just go fish next to everybody else.
Yep. He's just scoping everybody out.
What I'm doing is I'll walk around and I'll look for groups of holes that look like people have fished there for a while. And there's sure signs. I mean, you'll see, half some minnows or, some dip, or some cigarettes or something that people kind of put out. Pick those up if you see them. But those are sure signs that, someone's been there for a little while fishing.
Yep.
And if they've poked, 5 or 10 holes in an area, that you'd like to think they at least caught one fish while they were there.
Yep.
So that's usually my first go-to. And then my next thing after I've identified those spots is, just start digging a couple of holes, maybe right next to some spots. You can definitely tell in certain areas where they've set up a shack or something like that. So I definitely make sure, if I'm running a hand auger, you've only got so many holes that you're going to dig with that thing.
Yep.
I would definitely at least make sure I put a few holes where they'd set up shacks,
yep.
That sort of deal. Because there was a reason they set up that shack there.
Yep.
They're not just setting it up there just to set it up. You'd like to think anyways.
Yep. Another good tool, if you're ultra low buck, one thing I know now I cannot do without would be a spud bar, a chisel setup. I mean, that goes a long way to reopening old holes. If you truly only have a hand auger and you're out there trying to get by, you can do a lot with just a spud bar.
Yep.
You're going through, if it's been a day,
I'd say I've opened up 5 inches of ice with a spud bar before.
Yeah, it's a little bit of work, but it's less work than hand augering in some cases.
I mean, a spud bar, really, out of all the safety equipment you'd ever buy for ice fishing, the spud bar is the only one that's keeping you out of the water.
Yes.
All the other equipment are for after you've gone in the water to get back out.
Yep. And once you get good at using it, you can tell solid ice. You can tell ice thickness with how it feels as you're stabbing the ice as you go.
And you can tell how deep how thick it is, how safe it is. I mean, you start to figure out an area of
ice.
I can walk on 2 hits, or I can walk on 3 hits. So, I mean, yeah, not to go too deep into spud bars,
but if you're reopening old community holes, that would be a perfect place to do it, is with a spud bar.
Yep.
And you're not trying to beat it out with your boot, or even worse, trying to, I don't know.
Who knows what else
you can slip and fall easily trying to do that, and I've done that in front of a bunch of people. So don't be doing that.
Nope.
But so tell me, Brett, when you're talking about breaking down water, if there's no community holes around, okay, what other features of a lake are you going to look at?
So say we're talking fresh powder, so just snow, you can't see where people had been before, that sort of deal. The next thing I'm looking for would be shoreline features. So you're looking for areas that are either you could tell where there's a little wetland up in one area, especially a lot in the water that we fish here around central Iowa. You're fishing a lot of dammed up ponds. It's a sure bet that along the dam you're going to have a pretty steep shore break.
Okay.
Or a lot of times along either of those shores that are getting closer to the dam, and then as you work up away from the dam, water tends to get shallower. But then there's also an area up there as you get kind of up into the marshy area, as you get into those shallow areas where you hit a transition between that mucky, silty ground and then the firm bottom. Those aren't always that easy to find just by looking at the shoreline, but there's an area up there that's definitely valuable. But watching the shoreline, looking for steep breaks, because that's going to be more likely your deeper water in the area.
Yeah, and lean on your open water tactics too when you guys are out there ice fishing on these ponds or anywhere on any lake. If you notice a real rocky transition coming down the side of a hill, that's probably going to transition and stay rocks in the water.
Or those jetties. The DNR likes to put a pile of jetties out in the water.
Yep.
For
There's more rocks
shore
under
fishermen.
there. Yep.
And those rocks transition right into the water.
Yep.
So fishing right along those.
Very
I know
good.
I've had some success out on Brushy fishing those jetties like that.
Just fishing jetties in the rocks and on the big piles of rocks next to them.
Tidbit for you guys fishing Brushy.
How far away are you fishing off those, Brett?
Not far, because they're usually pretty steep breaks, so I'm fishing maybe 5 feet off. Maybe 10 feet.
Yep.
Not too far off of those areas. But if I'm fishing a shoreline break, I'll do a combination of, I'll put a heavy jig or what are those clamp things that you use for tip ups? Oh, I don't remember what they're called. Those little light bulb weights.
Yeah, the depth finder.
Depth finder weights.
Yes.
I'll clip one of those on there.
Yep.
Dig a couple holes straight out from the shore and look to see if there's a break. See if I can drop my line down there and see if I can find a break along that.
Now, one trick I've used a long time ago on those depth finder weights would be figuring out bottom composition with the weight itself.
Yep.
Right? If you have decent line, something that you can jockey around a little bit and kind of tap along the bottom.
Yep.
You can feel, is it muck? Is it sand? Is it
rock?
silt? Is it
rock?
lot
if it's muck, that muck will come up if you bring it up slow enough too.
Yep.
A lot of times.
So the 50 cent, not even 50 cents.
A lot of times they're free. You can pick them up wherever.
Yep.
Minnesota Ice Show.
Exactly.
They give them away like candy up there.
Yep. Or use your open water, lead weights.
Yeah.
You can use those.
Just a split shot.
Yep. Split shot.
Anything
like
shot.
that.
But yeah. So after I do that, running the shoreline, you're looking for deeper water.
Yep.
Once you find that deeper water, and deeper water is relative. That's one thing you find a lot. A lot of people talk about look for deep water, go to deep water. Well, what's that mean in every lake?
Yep, it's something different
It's
every
either
time.
if you're in a bowl, that deep water might be 10 feet. If you're out on a lake like Big Creek, which is a little bit more of a dynamic lake, that following the shoreline structure doesn't always work that well, especially if you're chasing after like basin crappies or something like that.
Yep.
The shoreline structure doesn't work all that great, but sometimes it can if the basin butts right up next to shore.
Yep.
But that's not really something you can obviously see. from shore. But
yep. So you're talking a little bit of structure too, and figuring out if you don't have a flasher to try and determine structure on a lake, how else would you find structure on a lake?
Yep. So this is something I did quite a few years back, and I update it all the time, is the Iowa DNR does a fantastic job of making it publicly available to get GPS points of where they have dropped structure. And they have them labeled trees, pallets, stake fields, or stake beds, or other. They have a lot of rock pile and stuff labeled other. But getting those, finding that on their website, and downloading them. Now, not everyone's all that tech savvy on how to do that stuff. For my job, I do quite a bit of GIS, GPS type work. So it was pretty straightforward, and I kind of knew what was going on, how to do that stuff. But so if you go to the DNR website, I don't have that in front of me here at the moment, but I think if you can just Google DNR structured GPS points or something like that, you can find it. And if you take your smartphone, and if you have a Gmail account and you have Google Maps, you can go onto your laptop computer. I'm sure you could do it on your smartphone, but I don't know how to do that exactly. But take your laptop, pull up a program called My Maps, which is linked to your Google Maps. That's why you need the Gmail account.
Okay.
And you can download what's called a KMZ file off of the DNR website, and that will upload directly into your My Maps deal, or Google Maps, or Google Earth is the other word I was looking for. Those files will upload directly into, they're specifically for Google products. But then you take that, and it'll pull up right up on your Google Maps, and then it'll be starred. You can find it. You pull up your Google Maps on your phone. You click on the little 3-button thing on the top left corner. You scroll over to your places, hit My Maps, and it'll be Iowa DNR structure, whatever you want to name it.
Cool.
And that'll all pop up. GPS located. You can get within 10 feet of your phone GPS, and that'll put you right on them. I've done that exact scenario. Don Williams came home with a limit of bluegills in about 3 hours. And I'd never, since then, I don't know that I've hardly even caught a bluegill out of Don Williams. But I was on them that day.
I have to go back to doing that this year.
That was the same deal. That was before I had flasher. That was when I was still hand augering them. Went out there, did it. And the DNR officer actually stopped by checking tags, or checking licenses.
Yep.
And I asked him, well, how's everybody else doing out there? Because he poked his head, and he's like, oh, man, you're going old school out here, because I just had my 2 schoolies in the water. No flasher, nothing.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, it doesn't sound like anybody's really catching anything out there other than you.
Wow.
And I had a bucket of, 15 bluegills that were 8.5 inches.
Sometimes the old way's the better way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a better way. It's just a different way that, there was no one else around me. I was out there. There was a whole village fishing off the roadbed straight off that main boat ramp from the bait shop. But I pieced out a little closer to the dam and used, that was an exact scenario where several things came together. So this is another deal that you can use to find spots, is when several attributes that you're looking for intersect. So I'm looking for shoreline structure where it drops deep. And then also, if I have a DNR point in that spot, that's going to be a key spot that I want to target.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are my ways of finding spots.
All right, so now that we've found out where we're going to fish, Brett, what is our next step for fishing without a flasher?
Yeah, so once I'm setting up, I've got everything. I've dug my holes. I'm ready to start seeing if there's fish down there. My next thing is fish with some confidence baits. So jigs, spoons that you've ran in the past.
Rattling flyer.
We've
talked about that before.
And sometimes that is some value of those rattles. Will bring them in a little bit. But obviously, if you're a beginner, maybe you don't have the experience or the confidence in some of those baits. You just come out with some jigs and a Swedish pimple or something like that. But the key after that is to fish with as many rods as you can have in the water. So in Iowa, you can have 2, unless you buy the 3rd license, and you can have 3. But have, like we'd mentioned in the last episode, have 2 jigs or have 2 baits in the water, 1 dead stick. That what I do is I just run those couple cranks off bottom, 6 to a foot off bottom.
Yep.
And if nothing's hitting them after a while, maybe bring it up a little bit, put it back down a little bit. Just move it. Keep moving until you figure out what's going on. And then my other bait that I'm running is I'm active. I'm hole hopping. If I've dug a couple of holes, if it's cold and I've only dug 1 or 2 holes, I'm jigging up vertically in the water column.
Yep.
Running, starting at the bottom, working my way to the top.
Yep.
Give it a couple 30 seconds to a minute.
I was going to say, how long do you stay on each hole? Are you a 5-minute, 10-minute kind of guy, or a little bit less?
Yeah, if I've just got to the spot and I haven't caught any fish yet, okay, I'll give a hole 2-3 minutes.
Oh wow,
that's not
a lot.
If I've been to that spot for a while, or if I have some past history with that location, maybe I'll give it some longer.
Okay.
If I've caught a fish,
unknown spots, you're only there 2 minutes, and you're
2 or 3 minutes,
and then moving
around.
I'm
at least going to a different hole.
Yep.
I'm not saying I'm going to go all the way to the other side of the lake and I'm going to abandon this whole spot, but I'm at least going to start thinking about, all right, where else do I need to drill some holes around here?
Staying active.
Yep.
Okay.
So then after that, what I'm doing is if I've caught a fish, so I've got one in there, I'm working that hole, but I haven't caught anything again for a few minutes, then it's time to move again. So if I drop down, catch a bluegill instantly right away, I'll give her maybe 5 minutes after that, maybe 10, and in that same location. So what's real key and what's difficult in ice fishing sometimes, unless you have a pin or are able to somehow tab your line, is to get back to that same exact location that you were at where you just caught that fish.
Yes.
So to make sure you get sunk down where you need to be, because a lot of times if you're off a foot, 6 inches, that fish will never see you.
Well, and it's so easy to get lost in the moving up and down.
Yep.
And hey, how many cranks am I off the bottom? You know, the schoolie has something for that.
Yeah, they got a little peg in the
peg you can use
in the reel.
Yeah.
But those things are kind of janky. I've broken line almost as often as I've ever actually had success using those. But especially, you really get lost as if you catch a crappie midway through the water column. Then you're like, shit, where was my bait just at when I need to drop it back down there? Because that's the spot you want to be.
Yep.
So one thing you can do is hand line them up. That way you make sure you go right back where you were at. It's not as much fun as reeling them in, but it might help. It might be the difference between catching one fish and catching 5 more fish.
What about counting cranks? Do you do that very often?
Yeah, especially with the schoolies, it's easier to count cranks, I think. Your spinning reels, I don't think it's quite as easy to count cranks.
I don't know how
because
accurate
things
that
are going
would be.
so fast.
I guess we should test that out this year.
Yeah, we can give it a shot. But
counting cranks. All
yep.
right.
So after I've been to a spot and say I drilled 5 holes and I've caught one decoy crappie that kept me there longer than I should have been.
The decoy crappie.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Sucker. There's always a decoy fish out there that you get to a spot and it's the first one you drop down on, boom, catch one. Catch a bass, catch a bluegill, something.
Okay.
And then you just don't catch anything after that.
So that's a fish that keeps you there for way too long.
Keeps you there way longer than what you should have been.
It gets you excited, though, about it.
Decoy crappie. And it doesn't even matter what kind of species it is. I always call it the decoy crappie.
That's
no
hilarious.
Matter what. It doesn't matter what species.
That's awesome. See, those are the fish, though, that get you hooked on, all right, there's a bite here.
Yep.
I need to figure out and break it down and keep that bite going. And maybe you keep it going. Maybe you never get another fish again.
Yep.
And what Brett's saying is, more often than not, it's just a total decoy.
Sometimes you run into the decoy crappie. And it's you don't know.
Yep.
You catch that when you don't know that it was a decoy.
It's worth catching. But that's still fun.
Yeah, it sinks you in there and you're stuck.
Yep.
So after that, then I'm moving. I'm off to the next spot if I haven't caught anything. If I have caught them, which often that happens, stay there.
Yep.
Make that milk run. Keep people off you. Don't be hollering about catching bluegills.
And if you're hand augering and you're moving around, you're going to stay warm.
Yep.
Between the two. Boring holes in the ice with the hand auger will keep you warm as well as
one thing I've learned is to take your layers off while you're augering.
Yep.
Sweating out there, especially if you're new, because you likely don't have a hut. You might just be sitting out there on a bucket. Take your clothes off while you're augering, even if it's a little chilly, because you're gonna get sweaty, and then you're gonna get real cold while you're sitting there ice fishing.
Absolutely. So I know in the era that we're fishing in right now, Brett, it's pretty exciting we have Facebook. You know, all the great ice fishing groups and ways to connect with other ice fishermen. You got this podcast right here, the Short Rod Show.
Yep.
Hopefully that's a good way to interact and get people excited about ice fishing. But what are some other resources? Say you don't have a flasher, you're just getting started out in ice fishing. What are some other resources you can lean on to learn about ice fishing and learn to be good at it?
The first thing I would do is I would go to the local come-and-go gas station, and I'd buy a 6-pack of Miller Lite, and I'd just go to the lake and ask people.
There you go.
I'd just go chat with the guys.
Yep.
Because, I mean, a lot of times you see people, you get a few grumpies, but there's grumpy people in all sorts of life.
Yeah, we go up and do that.
Take a couple beers, be like, hey, I'm thinking about wanting to get into ice fishing. People are real friendly. Hell, I would be ecstatic if somebody came up to me, handed me a Miller Lite, and said, "Hey, tell me about what you're doing here.
Yes.
How are you fishing it? What you got going on?" I would immediately go get them a rod, dig them a hole, and be like, "Hey, this is exactly what I'm doing." I'd be pumped.
You're so nice. Do you remember the guy that came to our shelter and thought we were totally the wrong dudes?
Yep.
He thought for sure we were his other buddies.
Yep.
I don't know how.
Even when he looked in there, even after
He
he'd opened
saw
the
us.
door and saw us, he thought we were his buddies.
But this dude comes in, it's like, "Hey guys, how you doing?"
Yeah.
"Oh, pretty good." We just thought he was there to just see how we were doing.
Yep.
No, he totally thought he was going down, figuring out, trying to
Because
figure
he was
out.
wanting to get in. He was figuring out, I didn't realize there were 3 of you in there. How am I going to fit in here? He thought he was going to try to fit in
We're
our
like,
hut.
I mean, yeah, if we had room, you could fish with us. Like, you seem like a cool dude, but yeah, ice fishermen are pretty friendly. Really, I haven't run into a lot of people. If you're out there on a spot, I mean, obviously they're not going to be able to keep their spot secret.
Yep.
That's kind of the main thing fishermen are about. Hey, I have my secret spots on whatever lakes. If you're already out there with them, geez, you found them.
Yep.
You got me. Here's my hole.
Yep.
Up on Clear Lake when we did a little sight fishing adventure,
Yeah, that was a blast.
board some sight fishing holes, and that was just the dog pile of people coming on there.
Yeah, it was amazing so we dug this sight fishing hole just because I don't know how to fish in 3 feet of water, man. It
wasn't 3 feet.
annoys
It was
me.
like 2 feet.
It annoys me because you can't see nothing on the flasher. You're only just a little bit down in the water
Yep.
column, and so we cut out this hole and we sit through our shack over there so we could see the bottom and see what's going on. And then we left for lunch.
Yep.
And the foot traffic and the snowmobile tracks that we saw that came and checked out our hole was amazing.
It was
the number of people that
unbelievable.
were like, "Oh, what's going on over here?"
Well, it was our mistake. We did the right thing. Marked
put that
it
stick in there.
with a branch,
Yep.
so no one would,
Well, then some asshole took the stick out, took the branch out of there.
Yep.
And when we came back, we put it back in there. I was like, "Geez, that's dangerous as hell. Somebody's gonna fall in that."
But yeah, especially out there. I mean, people are getting close. They're coming up, chatting
Yep.
with you. Try and make it a point of talking with
Before
people.
we go get away, do you remember when we went back to ice fish there for the Iowa State tournament?
Yep.
That branch was still in the water.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it was
holding
still
up.
in the ice.
Yep, holding up in a foot of ice, more than a
Yeah,
foot.
that's gonna be structure we can
We're
come back
driving
to
the truck
next year.
around on it. No
Structure that we
problem.
can come back to next year.
Yep. That's hilarious. So, say, Brett, we took your advice. You went out and handed out a few Miller Lights to the crowd out on the lake. Who else would you talk to about
Yep.
ice fishing?
The first thing I would go to is the bait shop. They know everything. They're out there to promote their business, and they're out there to promote the sport of fishing. So stop by there. There's people that come in all the time, tell them about what they're catching, where they're catching them,
Yep.
how they're catching them.
They want you to catch fish.
Yeah, those guys are a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, it's in their best interest for you to have a positive experience on the water.
Yep.
So they're going to do everything they possibly can. And I know there's a lot of bait shops out there, and I know the local one here, Johnston Bait and Tackle.
Yep.
They'll rent you a flasher also if that's something that you're interested
Cool.
in. I'm not exactly sure what they charge for it, but
Oh, that's great. Because, I mean, if you're out there, say you're growing your family, you have a real minimal budget, you're looking for something fun to do on a weekend, and you're not sure
Yep.
if you're going to like ice fishing
Yeah.
or want to continue doing it, going out and spending, probably $20-$40
yeah, it can't be that much to rent one.
to rent a flasher for the weekend, that's a game changer there.
Yep. Yeah, and like you'd mentioned before, Ben, that when I'm first starting out, I'm not sure if I'm going to like ice fishing.
Yes.
So I don't want to have this huge major investment in being able to kind of rent on a few things, and
Yep.
that really helps out a lot.
And for me, just getting started ice fishing, I knew I wanted to ice fish, but not having a flasher, it definitely wasn't as fun. So, I mean, this whole episode is talking about fishing without a flasher. It's not the same as fishing with a flasher.
Yep.
It's not for everyone, but that flasher might be if you have access to borrow buddies or rent one.
Yep.
That might be the kick in the pants that you need to get out there and actually really enjoy being out and get to have ice fishing as a hobby as much as we do, and get to really enjoy it. So that's important too.
Yeah. So say I'm hooked on it. I'm ready to go out and buy a flasher, but
Yeah.
I've only got $200 and my wife's on my ass about that part even. So Ben, where do you think, where should I go find something cheap?
Yep.
And is a cheap option a good option.
Sure. Well, there's good and bad points with this, Brett. The good points are flashers are very reliable piece of equipment. There's a few kind of duds out there talking, digital types, and the RT9 from Markham doesn't have that great of a reputation. But as far
that
as
2.0 is going to be good.
the 2.0 is going to save them. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But really, it's talking as far as mechanical flashers. We're talking the Vexilar FL8. That one, rock solid, super reliable, and they hold their value very well. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good and bad.
Almost to a point where it pisses you off, because some of these are like 15 years old and they still want $100 for them.
More, yeah, you can't find one for $100.
No,
There's no way.
Every once in a while, you'll come across one for 125, and you better message that person on Facebook or Craigslist within 15 minutes of them posting that, or someone's already bought.
Yeah, they're buying a new one and they're not wanting that one as a backup. I mean, people use them as backups all the time.
Yep.
There really isn't a reason to get rid of one unless you need the money necessarily. So people hold on to them for a long time. They're very reliable. They hold up really well over time, and they hold their value over time. So it's good and bad. Okay, if you buy one, you know it's going to be worth about what you paid for it in 10 years.
Yep.
Roughly, maybe a little less, but
So where are you going to find some of these budget flashers?
really just go to your typical places. We're talking Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace is good. I like going on eBay as well, especially in the off season. eBay is it's a worldwide marketplace, so we're looking at stuff. It might be up in Minnesota, it might be out somewhere where you wouldn't even think about it. So people out in Washington, Oregon with ice flashers, or Idaho, or anywhere.
Maybe they're willing to ship it to you.
Yeah, and they'll ship it, $10 or whatever. So that was my experience. I bought a VX1 Pro, I think it's just a VX1,
And that's a
Markham. Yep. So that's their budget version flasher. Bought it in August a couple years ago, off season, just poking around on eBay.
Yeah.
And it was
so
$130.
back up on the August. So out of season.
Buy out of season.
I mean, that's the time to find the best deals. I mean, I bought my gas auger before electric augers were all the rage for $100 on the hottest day of the year in July.
Yep. Thinking ahead.
Yep.
Not having a auger emergency and having to buy whatever's on the marketplace in the middle of December because everyone's out fishing and and you just want to get out there too.
Yep.
Buying at the height of the market. So, that's really good. A good place to go. And just put some feelers out. Talk with your buddies about it too. Some of the ice fishing groups on Facebook are pretty in tune with that. Maybe someone has an extra backup that they're even willing to lend you. Like we talked about, just to see if you like it, and that's a good way of test driving them too. So I will say the budget flasher market versus not having one is a huge improvement on any kind of flasher you're going to get. So Brett and I were talking a little earlier about some other options that are not the mechanical type flashers.
Yep.
Markham has their Showdown series. They're like 2.0 and they're 5.6. The 2.0 new is not quite $200, I don't think. And they blow those out on clearance all the time.
Yeah, those do come
on Rappala's website. So that's a good option, real basic option. But a lot of people that aren't used to using a flasher like that option just because you have the vertical display.
Yeah, there's not so much.
Top is the top of the water, right underneath the ice. Bottom is the bottom of the lake.
So. And it's easy to picture, and there's not as much going on. Where with flashes, you can get different colors, and what do all those colors mean, and you get kind of confused.
So, the $200 range is it may buy you a new one. Check out icefishingdeals.com. That's going to show you.
Deals, there's going to be something on that thing. There's some stellar deals. Yeah,
definitely.
That or Black Friday's coming up.
Yep. Yeah.
Although, sometimes I'm a little disappointed in the deals that they give on Black Fridays. But.
Yep. Black Friday is a good way to do it. Basically, just your typical bargain hunting tactic. So that ice fishing deals, that was a game changer for me on figuring out when is a good time to buy. Because if you just check that every night before you go to bed, it's going to show you the deal that comes up. And you might have to, if you're not in a huge hurry, you might have to wait an hour. You might have to wait a month, but it's going to be on there. They're going to have sales on it.
Or I know a lot of people run those Garmin Striker. I think they're Striker.
Yeah, the Striker 4, I think.
Striker 4, they're like $100. They're open water. I mean, they don't come with a ice deucer, but a guy will, I don't know, hose clamp the open water deucer to a PVC pipe, or something, and drop it down. And I've got a couple buddies that run that, and they run them to like an ammo box into their. They mount the deal on top of an ammo box, and they've got their battery in there, and $100 they're in the money. It's a little bit cumbersome, but actually the response on that is pretty decent from what I've seen.
Yeah, and like what we said before too, the incremental amount of technology that's come through.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get the cheapest of the cheap whatever today and be way better off than 20, 30 years ago.
Yep.
The best technology they had there. So it's just like anything else, but it's really exciting, time in ice fishing where all of this equipment is so available to everyone, and it's relatively inexpensive.
Yep. But you don't have to
use to get out of it. Yep.
But I think that this episode proves that.
Yep. That was great. I mean, a lot of people talk about flasher tactics and just take flashers as a given.
Yep.
We're harkening back to the time before we had flashers.
Yep.
So I think
maybe we'll
really
do
cool.
a challenge. Maybe we'll do a no flasher challenge later this ice
That would
season.
be cool. Get out on the ice and just see who's got the manly man skills to get out there and hunt down some fish without technology.
Yep. Nothing. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add, Ben?
I think that does a pretty good job for this show. I appreciate you guys listening in with us as we're learning how to podcast and trying to get a little bit better each time.
Yeah. I think our flow is getting a lot better.
I think so too. We're having a good time doing it. Hopefully you're having a good time listening in. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you listening to The Short Rod Show.